Hi, I'm going to read you some of this book. It's called Animals Behaving Badly, with a fantastic cover and illustrations by Adam Stower. And I absolutely guarantee that it will cheer you up and hopefully make you smile and even perhaps make you laugh. Even though all the stories in here are absolutely true, they're stories about animals getting the better of humans, which I really, really like, because let's face it, most of the time we end up giving animals a really, really hard time. Okay, so I'm just going to read you the first chapter, which is about an animal called a wolverine. And if you don't know what a wolverine is, don't worry, because I'm just about to explain what they are. So the chapter is called Demon Wolverines. You might not know what a wolverine is, so let me introduce you. Imagine a low-slung, weaselly sort of beast, about the size of a Labrador dog. Okay so far? Now make its legs a bit longer and its fur thicker and shaggier, and there, you've got a wolverine. If a beefier, furrier kind of weasel doesn't look particularly impressive to you, then prepare to be surprised. Near Point Hope in Alaska, in the early spring of 1944, an Inuit hunter was out on the sea ice when he saw a big male polar bear. The human and the bear were searching for the same thing, seals, but the bear found a wolverine instead. The bear, like you perhaps, was not impressed. How much trouble could an animal a fraction of its size cause? It snarled, took a lazy lunge at the big weasel. The bear clearly didn't know much about wolverines, but it soon learnt. Instead of running off, the wolverine leapt at the bear, clamped its jaws around its windpipe, and held on until the bear was dead. An animal weighing less than a 6-year-old child had just taken out the biggest land-living carnivore on Earth. This was a surprise for the polar bear, but not for the Inuit, because although wolverines don't usually hunt on the sea ice, they have a reputation that every hunter in the far north knows. Wolverines live from Alaska to Greenland, from Norway to the Chukchi Peninsula in Siberia, where the winters are long and cruel and the snow lies deep on the ground from autumn to spring. They're known to be solitary, fierce, and fearless. There are reports of lone wolverines seeing off a grizzly bear or a pack of wolves. They are known to have the strength of a much larger animal. A wolverine can drag a deer carcass halfway up a mountain, and they are known for something else too: their ability to get the better of human beings. They're said to be spiteful and devilish. They will destroy traps and wreck human homes and food stores. Fiend, demon, devil, and vandal are just some of the not very complimentary words that people have used to describe wolverines. I first got interested in wolverines when I was a little kid, because I read another true story called Arch Criminal of the Wild. It went like this. In the north of Canada, around Hudson Bay, a Cree hunter was making his living by trapping animals like foxes, beavers, pine martens and wolverines, and then selling their fur. Many people did that back then, and a few still do it today. A wolverine moved into the trapper's area, ripped apart every single one of the many steel traps he had set to catch animals, and killed his dog. One night, while he was sleeping, it got into his cabin and chewed through his store of furs. It gobbled up his food, and what it didn't eat, it left ruined by the horrible stink of its musky scent glands. It dragged off his gun into the woods, and finally it shredded his snowshoes, which made it very difficult for him to struggle back through the snow to town and replace all he'd lost. You could easily see this as a tall story made up as an excuse for human mistakes, a lost gun, some broken traps. But stories like this were so common, in fact, that a company that bought furs from hunters across Canada had a handbook for all trappers which said, when a wolverine moves into his territory, a trapper has but two alternatives. He must trap the wolverine or give up trapping. The trappers, of course, thought wolverine trap wrecking and food spoiling was wicked. But even as a little kid, I was on the side of the wolverines. It seemed to me quite fair to destroy the traps, weapons and food stores of someone who was out to kill you and your kind. I especially loved the part of that story where the snowshoes get wrecked and the gun disappears. But did the wolverine really know what it was doing? Probably not. Wolverines survive by being able to eat anything, alive or dead. They'll catch small mammals, eat eggs, gobble up any dead body they come across. They'll even chew on old skin, and their jaws are so strong that they can crunch their way through bones and eat the bits just as you would eat a bag of crisps. As they can never be sure where their next meal is coming from, they can eat a lot. Their scientific name, gulo gulo, means glutton twice over. They're territorial too. They don't want to share the food on their patch. Like many mammals, their way of saying, "this is mine," is to scent mark it by squeezing the stinky, oily contents of their glands, which are like little pockets around their bottoms, all over their food. Another way to see that wolverine's devilish raid on the Cree trapper is this. The wolverine found dead animals, in other words, ready-made meals, in the traps. So when it broke the traps, it was simply taking the wrapper off its dinner. The food in the store was just another easy meal, and scent marking it, a way of saying, "this is my nosh now." Perhaps with the smell of human all round, the wolverine was also quite anxious, which would have made its scent marking extra stinky. What about chomping the snowshoes and carry off the gun? Well, back then snowshoes were strung with deer skin, which is actually just more wolverine snack. And the gun, well, perhaps the gun looked like some weird kind of bone that the wolverine could bury in the woods and eat later. As for the poor old dog, well, poor old dog probably just looked at Mr. Wolverine the wrong way. Seen like this, it isn't the behaviour of a demon trying to take revenge on an enemy, but that of a hungry animal trying to make the most of an opportunity. Wolverines aren't wicked or spiteful. They're just getting on with surviving in a tough environment. However, their extraordinary ability to survive gives one group of humans a very hard time indeed, and that's the scientists who study them. So wolverines are really fantastic, fascinating animals. And the chapter goes on to describe some of the scientific facts that we've discovered about them in the last few years, discovering that they are even more intelligent and a lot more social than we previously thought, and that they are just as tough, in fact even tougher, than those old trappers in northern Canada knew them to be. But when I was writing this book, I was looking for really good recent stories about wolverines. And a wildlife cameraman called John Aitchison told me this one. Not long ago, an American Indian hunter called George Wholecheese, that was really his name, I'm not making it up, George Wholecheese, came upon a wolverine along a frozen riverbed in Alaska. Now, wolverine fur is very, very highly prized for being frost resistant. So when George's snowmobile got stuck in a drift as he was chasing the wolverine, he was disappointed. There wasn't time to reach for his rifle, so he threw an axe at the animal. It missed, and it landed in the snow. And this is the part of the story that I really love. The wolverine looked at Mr. Wholecheese over the top of the axe, just looked at him. And then it looked at the axe. And then it turned round and it weed on the axe and then walked off.